Welcome everyone to the Development Goals Forum 2021, focusing on sustainable consumption and production. It is my great honor to carry you guys through this whole day. We have an eventful day ahead of us. This year's forum is a collaboration between Development Goals Forum and SpareBank 1 Östlandet. As I mentioned, there's lots of great events on the program this year, and so it consists of an opening ceremony, seminars, debates, and workshops that are all dedicated to the Sustainable Development Goals. Following this opening ceremony, there will be a seminar and a workshop. The seminar will focus on mobility and sustainable cities, while the workshop will focus on sustainable business models for the 21st century. We hope that you will participate and follow us throughout the whole day. Thank you very much. Today's first keynote will be given from Alexander Sem, the Strategy and Operations Officer of Development Goals Forum. With a broad background in IT, strategy, communication, and marketing, he uses all of this and his passion about innovation to drive it and work towards a transition to a more sustainable future. Today, he's going to talk about Development Goals Forum, share some updating, exciting news about the organization and where it's headed. And we're really excited to hear the news that he's going to announce to us today. So I want to give him a warm welcome.
On behalf of Development Goals Forum, I would like to welcome you all to this year's conference, which you'll join us online. This year's theme is responsible consumption and production. And we at Development Goals Forum have been working throughout the year with our business partners from the private sector to come up with ideas, to innovate on solutions to address sustainability issues and challenges. And we've conducted workshops, seminars, but also innovation program. A program that extended over a period of 2 weeks, where we involved 16 young professionals to come up with ideas, but also to test their ideas, to create concepts and research and try to find a business viability of those solutions in order to meet the challenge that we're all facing today. And we have done this together with a true partner of ours, Young Sustainable Impact. You might know them as YSI. It's a company that have conducted quite a number of innovation programs across the globe by involving youth from all around the world to come up with ideas, to come up with solutions to address sustainability issues. And today, it's my pleasure to announce to you that we at Development Goals Forum have decided and agreed that we are going to merge with YSI, Young Sustainable Impact. And the reason that we're doing it is in order to meet the challenges that we're facing, we need to collaborate, we need to work efficiently, and also we need to be able to come up with viable solutions. And with that, we have a new brand, a new logo, that combines both what we at Development Goals Forum are passionate about, which is the sustainability goals, and also what YSI brings in, the connection and the network that they have throughout the youth. And I would like to welcome you all to join us on our discussion online. Follow us on social media. Make sure to keep posted on the progress ahead. And also, if you have any questions, please do let us know. Thank you.
We will now hear from the Sustainability Manager of SpareBank 1 Östlandet, Caroline Bakka Hjertø. She's been working with sustainability issues and human rights her whole life in different aspects of her working life. Caroline is passionate about sustainable development, meaning in all of its fronts, meaning social, environmental, and financial. And she's been engaged in justice, equal opportunities for especially children. Caroline has been working with social entrepreneurs responsible for building and structuring the business side of companies. And today she's going to talk about how the banks will save the world. And I'm really excited, and let's give her a warm welcome.
Today I'm going to talk about how banks will save the world. But first, I can never talk about this issue without reminding us all that we only have until 2030 to change the course we're at, to change the path of history. 9 years, the path of losing nature, the path of destroying ecosystems, the path of eradicating biodiversity, the path of increasing inequality. Do I sound like an environmental activist? I work in a bank. But science is telling us that we're entering into a new geological epoch, the Anthropocene, where humans are impacting the world more than nature itself. But there are solutions. Easiest is responsible production and consumption, which is the focus of the DGF event today, the SDG number 12. But what role do banks have in enabling responsibility, production, and consumption? In what way will banks save the world? The climate crisis, the nature crisis, the inequality crisis is all about the risks, but also the opportunities. And is it one thing that banks are good at? It's assessing risks and opportunities. What are these risks? What are these opportunities? Well, the climate and the nature crisis will cause physical change on nature, will change in the weather, that can damage buildings, damage infrastructure, change what we can grow, where, change our food system. But we also have new possibilities in this, new crops. The crisis will change people's awareness, change market demand. Some products will go out of the market, replaced by other products and other solutions. This crisis will lead to new regulation, change the way you can do business, but open up to new businesses. This crisis will force technological innovation, replace old technological solutions with new ones. Businesses will go out of markets, but others will enter. So, banks are good at assessing risks and possibility. How will that save the world? Well, banks want to make money. So they will search for the best companies with the best solutions, with the best products, with the best adaptation to physical climate and nature climate change. Companies that are best avoiding the risks. Companies with responsible production. Why? Because these are going to be the most profitable companies. So money and investments, it's going to shift from unsustainable companies over to these. The shift is going to be led by banks. And what is best in all this? Everyone has understood it. Starting from my bank, stating that our loan portfolio should be a zero-emission loan portfolio in 2050, joined by a lot of other banks in the UN-initiated Net Zero Banking Alliance, just launched a couple of days ago, up to the EU, they've made sustainable finance package one of the most crucial parts of their new Green Deal, using all the tools in the toolbox to enable sustainable companies to grow. One of them being the taxonomy, defining what is sustainable and what is not, and making banks show how much of their loans, how much of their investment are sustainable and how much is not. By the end of this year, banks will transfer money from unsustainable companies to sustainable ones. Banks, but not only that, banks will lead a revolution. Finance Norway is calling what is happening now in finance for the silent revolution. Capital is drawn towards sustainable activities. In 2020, there were more green bonds on the Oslo Stock Exchange than in the previous 5 years. We have 9 years to change the course we're at. We can do this. Everyone must play their part. The role of banks is crucial. And this is why banks will save the world.
The last keynote before we move on to an exciting panel discussion between the business community and young professionals is with Bjørn Haugland, the CEO of Shift Business Climate Leaders. Bjørn has been the former Executive Vice President and Sustainability Chief Officer in DNV Group, which gave him extensive experience assisting multinational companies in areas such as sustainability, climate change, and innovation. I give him a warm welcome to the stage.
So thank you so much for the invitation to talk to you here today. And we are in a very special time. Actually, we live in the kick-ass era of humanity. So if we look at the fundamental parameters of development, like access to energy, access to water, access to education, and so forth and so on, you will see that humanity has had a tremendous development over the last decades. And it is important to have this as a backdrop in all the bad news about climate change and what we are not achieving. But it is also important that the growth, the prosperity that we have gained over these years has come with a cost. And the cost is certainly that in many big cities today, we cannot drink the water, we can hardly breathe the air. So we have a big destruction of the climate, of the environment. And that means that when we now have the 17 UN Development Goals as our working plan towards 2030. Those 17 goals, they are really envisioning a bigger world, a better world, a more efficient world for everybody. But it also requires enormous change from where we are today to where we have to go. And that change is something we all need to take part in. But it is obvious that the younger generation has a bigger stake in that change. And that's why I'm so glad for this forum to be organized. And I'm so glad for all of you that are following the discussion here today. Because it is so important to ignite the next generation, to inspire the next generation to really take part of the change. And it is a few very important steps we have to take in order to reach our 17 sustainability goals. First and foremost, we have to decarbonize the world. And that means that all the way we are doing our businesses, all the ways we are running our societies, we shall not make it a little bit better tomorrow. We shall basically redo it in a way that all the supply chains are decarbonized. Not 20%, not 50%, but 100% decarbonized within 2050. And that, ladies and gentlemen, holds a lot of opportunities. Number two is that we need to build a better world that is much more resource efficient than what we are into today. So we need also to look at all our business models and the way we run societies in order to really make it resource efficient. And in Shift, we have just launched 10 principles for more circular principles for the business sector. And I'm so glad to see how many businesses now supporting these principles, because they see opportunities in a more resource efficient way. And thirdly, and here I need your support, is that we need to fight greenwashing. Because most of us really would like to take sustainable choices. And we can all make different choices. Everything happening in the world is the sum of all the choices we humans are doing. But then we need to hold the business sector accountable. We need to make sure that we cut through greenwashing. So when businesses are arguing for more environmental friendly products, they have to put evidence that they are really environmental friendly. So I would like you as a consumer to really help us to identify greenwashing and make sure that those products and those services which are really sustainable are those products and services which will succeed going forward. Because that is how we make change together. So in closing, doing the transformation to a safe and sustainable future, we need a lot of new ideas. We need a lot of new knowledge. We need you. So I would encourage you to take your education, either that is a theoretical or practical education, follow your dreams, follow your passion, and help us to make this whole world a better place day by day. So good luck with the rest of the conference, and thank you for inviting me. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. We're finally kicking off this year's exciting opening of the Development Goals Forum 2020 Globalization.
Welcome our very own CEO, Hamse Gartenbach.
It is now time and extremely important to move our focus from fixate on the problems to invest in the solutions that can create a sustainable future for all.
We are now going to have the roundtable discussion together with business leaders and young professionals. We're going to be talking about the Agenda 2030, youth involvement and cross-generational collaboration. To have this discussion, we have with us Caroline Bakka Hjerte, Head of Sustainability at SpareBank 1 Østlandet. She's been working with sustainability issues her whole life and human rights in different aspects of her working life. Secondly, we have with us Bjørn Kjæran Haugland, CEO in Shift, Business Climate Leaders. Throughout his career, Haugland has had multiple leadership roles in both Norway, Korea, and China. Thirdly, we have Valentine Gentil. He is the consultant at Carbon Limits and daily operations manager at WeCycle. Background in industrial ecology, working with circular economy and climate change mitigation. And lastly, but not last, Amar Bukhari, CEO of Bukhari, passionate about social entrepreneurship with decades of experience in the field of humanitarian and development work. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So, as I mentioned, we'll be talking about the Agenda 2030, and I'll start with the sort of broad overall question. What does sustainability mean to you as individuals and in the work that you've been doing the last decades or years? Caroline, do you want to start?
Of course. I work with sustainability every day. So what it means to me is my daily, is my work. And this is what I wanted to work with since high school. This is, and the reason is the crisis we're in, and that we've been in for 50 years. So that's what it means to me. It's my daily work, and it's my passion, and it's what's driving me.
And you work with finance. So in that sort of perspective, what does sustainability mean to you then?
Well, finance is playing a crucial role in this transition. So it's fun. I've been working with sustainability all my working life in different roles. And when you work in finance, you're moving so much money, and you're able to enable the transition. Work with companies, work with whole sectors, work with governments, organizations on such a systemic and broad level that I like.
Nice. All right. Björn?
Yeah, I think, for me also sustainability is all about opportunities. And it came to me through my professional life when I headed up DNV in China like 10 years ago. And I saw the big challenges the Asian society at that time had. And I understood also the big changes coming our way. And in that sense, I saw for the business community, this represents a lot of opportunities. And for the last 10, 12 years, I worked every day to unlock those opportunities and make sure that business leaders see them fast enough so they are able to transform their own organization and make sure that what the companies are doing is really to solve the 17 sustainability goals.
Nice. We'll tap back into that. Valentin?
Yeah, I think sustainability for me is a common sense that everyone should have, no matter the political preferences or how old you are. Everyone should have that, and I got struck by that very early on when I was working on planned obsolescence, and since then I think that kind of drove what I wanted to do in life, and I wanted to be a part of the change of the solution as well, and that's what I'm doing today in WeCycle, where we're doing a small scale, very experimental activity where sustainability is just the reason we do it. And at the same time with carbon limits, where we do it on a bigger scale, where we help people changing the way they work and have more impact on the way people work together and on the system as well.
Nice. Ahmad?
I think sustainability to me has to do with both accountability and also honesty. It's a way of, it's an approach, it's a mindset, it's a way of doing things. Now, in the line of work where I am, in the textile industry, sustainability comes to, in terms of being honest about what you do, being transparent, having traceability in terms of what one does. Importantly for me and for what we do, sustainability is not only about green sustainability, but also social sustainability. So we go out of our way to make sure that what we do is sustainable, both in terms of the planet, but also the people who we work with. And that connection there to make sure that those things work together, hand in hand, that is what sustainability also comes down to me. And those are the challenges that we're facing every day when we claim to try to become more sustainable. I don't think there's an end goal. You can't be 100% sustainable. No product can be 100% sustainable, but you can always work towards achieving or to become more sustainable. And that's precisely what we're trying to do.
Nice, and I think it's an important aspect you're pointing out with sort of the triple bottom aspect of what sustainability actually means. I think very often you think that sustainability is about only environment or it's only a social aspect, but it's the three aspects that needs to work together in order for it to be the right kind of development that we want. And so I wanted to tap in. All of you guys work in very different sectors. You have very different daily jobs. What opportunities do you guys see, and what challenges do you also experience or you see here? And so I want to hear from all of you actually on this. I don't want to start.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Valentin.
Yeah, I see maybe a lot of challenge because maybe now sustainability is everyone knows that. Everyone is a bit aware of what sustainability is something green, it's something good for the planet or for the people and so on. And there is more and more demand for that. But what I see as well is that, yeah, a lot of people are asking for that, but sometimes it's not for the right things, or they're asking for something that they believe is sustainable, but actually in practice it's not at all sustainable, or not better than what they were using before. So I think the challenge here is to educate even more people into choosing what actually makes sense as well. And for example, at Recycle, that's a demand that we are facing quite often, where, for example, people are asking us recycle plastic, and they want to make objects or replace objects that were made out of locally sourced wood here around Oslo and make it with plastics. And sometimes it doesn't make sense because we would create a new demand for new objects, whereas being really sustainable is just to replace what we need and not create more in a way. So that's also the challenge we have, I see here, the education of people, also of leaders, and using sustainability the right way.
What about you guys, Caroline? Or what do you see in your respective work and around you?
Well, for a bank, it's extremely simple and extremely complicated, because I'm 100% sure that the most profitable companies in the future are going to be the companies that take sustainability seriously. So for us, the opportunity is to get those companies to be the customers in my bank. That's the opportunity, and that's what I'm working for. In now, in 5 years, in 10 years, in 30 years. I want those companies to come to us. And why? Because I'm certain that they are the one that will make money, that will find the new solutions, the new products, that will follow regulation that is coming, that are gonna find new markets, the new customers, are gonna meet the demands of young people.
But what do you do then, I'm wondering, so one thing is getting the new type of companies to be customers and clients of yours, but what about the existing portfolio you already have then? What type of work do you do to transition them from maybe environments, sectors that are not that well for our society today, but making them future fit?
We made a due diligence assessment based on the OECD guidelines. So we're assessing the companies. We're assessing all companies over 1 million and also the risk companies under 1 million, which is quite a low. And the reason it's like you were saying that there's no absolute threshold in sustainability. Might be, but often it's about the transition. So a lot of the assessment is also about educating and enlightening the businesses. A lot of them are SMEs about the change that is coming in their sector, in the market, in regulation, in technological changes. Have you read the roadmap for your sector? Have you read what's written there? Do you see regulation coming in your sector? Are you aware of the taxonomy coming? Are you aware of the social risks in your sector? What are you doing with it? Do you have guidelines? Do you have procedures? And all of that is also to raise awareness about the sustainability issues and make them do the transition themselves. So we're not checking, are you doing this? Yes, no. Yeah. And then, okay, so you're in or you're out.
Right.
We want to move them.
Right. And so Björn actually works with a lot of businesses sort of in your coalition. And what challenge and experiences and opportunities do you guys see?
We focus a lot on climate because we see climate as a big barrier. If we are not able to handle that is a barrier to achieve the other 16 goals. So we really focus our effort into climate. And when we are starting that focus, you can see a lot of opportunities because we know the world need to decarbonize all sectors, all value chains over the next 10, 20, 30 years. That means that we need to do things very much different than we do today. And that's really what we see as the biggest opportunity to work on that decarbonization. I would say the challenge is that what we are doing is far from enough. We are working too slow, and we are too much in love with our existing ways of living, transportation, and all of that. So for time being, it's a lot of talk, and it is almost, we are not even close to the action we need to see. Last year and into this year, in the middle of a pandemic, still the changes we have done now is not enough in order to really start on the pattern to the goals we have in the Paris Agreement. So that just kind of give you some feeling of the change we need to see and the speed of change. So that's really, but I still look at that as an opportunity. And of course, the flip chain is the challenge. Things are going too slow, far too slow. And last week I was in Svalbard. In Svalbard, the temperature is already about 4 degrees higher. And you see the consequences of moving into a warmer society. And that we will see over the next 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. So it's kind of 2 challenges we are into. One is to reduce the emissions, and the second is to adapt to a quite different environment.
And so when you say that it's going too fast, too slow, what in your personal perspective, what is one of the biggest, what is maybe the action with the biggest impact that can be done to sort of change that?
Well, the action is that people around the world must feel that we are into the crisis. And it is not that hard, because it's only to read the scientific papers or listen to Greta Thunberg, which I think is much better than every university to explain what is into those papers. So unless we feel that we need to change, we will continue to talk a lot and do very little.
I think you have 3 important call them elements here. You have state regulation, the government's regulations that increasingly are bringing about change, but way too slow. And I think we could expect much more from our governments. I think the EU is doing a great job in that sense. There's a lot of not so good things about the EU, but in this area, when it comes to environment, when it comes to climate change and so on, the EU is doing a lot of good. I think Norway has the resources to go way beyond that. We shouldn't be sitting waiting for the EU to come up with new guidelines, etc. So that's the government area. It's the businesses themselves. We as businesses, there's no reason why we should wait for regulations to come in place and then start acting. We know, and most businesses who are in any way active today, certainly startups, know where the future lies. And I fully agree with you, the future of business is being sustainable. Hopefully in the future, you will stop naming businesses being sustainable or not sustainable. They will all be sustainable. And I, sometimes I refer to myself as a social entrepreneur. I shouldn't be calling myself a social entrepreneur. I should be calling myself an entrepreneur, because all entrepreneurs should be social and environmentally friendly. And I think that's the shift that we're seeing. And so my encouragement would go to business leaders out there. Don't wait for government regulations. Move ahead. Make your changes right now. And the third factor, which I think is extremely important, are the consumers. Now, you may call it the Greta Thunberg generation, etc. They're coming. They're getting older. They're having more purchasing power. I choose to be optimistic, and I choose to believe that they will not be like my generation, that kind of, as we grew older and as we got more purchasing power, we somewhat forgot some of our morals and some of our values and became like our own parents. But I choose to believe that young people today will continue to ask difficult questions, will continue to choose the more sustainable options that are out there will look beyond the product that they get, whether it's a service or a product. They will look beyond that and ask questions about where does this come from, traceability and so on. And that's where actually I would challenge the notion of saying that a focus on climate is a prerequisite for all others. I think they all come together. Because what you're going to see, what you have today already is a majority of Norwegian companies that sell products, import them from other countries. Now, unless we can take the social conditions under which these products are being made seriously and make sure that the working conditions are at the levels that we could expect, you're not going to see a real sustainable change. You will see that you can tick off on certain areas in terms of reduce the carbon emissions and so on of these products, but in terms of whether it's sustainable for humanity and for the planet overall, I don't think it will be. So obviously that touches upon bigger issues in terms of inequality, in terms of governance issues and so on as well. But that's the challenge. That's the real challenge that comes with sustainability. It's not about omitting less pollution only. It's about making sure that everyone and anyone who's involved in a process of making a product or a service is being dealt with in a reasonable, humane way along the way. And that's why it's so difficult to deal with it. And that's why coming from a relatively small company, we try to do our very best at what we can do. We employ 400 people. We give free schooling to 700 children. With our limited resources, we can do that. And I sometimes ask large business owners, where are you in all this? Stop giving small donations of 1% here and there. Step up to the challenge. You have the resources, right? Now we're doing what we can. If others don't do it, and don't only think about it as a charity, make your money and then give 5% to a good cause. Bring it into your own DNA. Bring it into the way you do your business. Then I think you're going to see real change happen.
And you're working with those kind of things today. How do you guys how is that interlinked to your core business? Maybe you can share a bit about Carbon Limits or WeCycle.
Yeah. So of course that's the big challenge for us, and that's what we're trying every day to implement there and exploit a bit. And there is something that you raised up here, being responsible for the whole value chain that you have, and here that's a lot of companies now today are actually trying to do, but there is still a lot of room for improvement in there. So that's also what we're doing in a way in WeCycle, ensuring that the value chain for other companies are handled properly, are handled in Oslo, instead of being shipped, for example, in other countries, and then is ensuring proper working conditions for people here. So that's what we're doing as well. And then in Carbon Limits, we are fighting climate change, reducing emissions at really big levels there. So yeah, that's a part of the game as well.
And it's a different balance too, it's a different balance to balance in itself. What considerations to take? How do you work with the balance of those two aspects that you mentioned? Did you want to say something on it?
I just wanted to come back a bit to the discussion. What is is climate? Because I totally agree with you. It has to go hand in hand. At the same time, scientists are telling us, like Johan Rockström, that we're entering into a new geological epoch, the Anthropocene, where the humans are impacting the nature more than nature, or ecosystem more than nature itself. And that is what scares me, and that's why I like the wedding cake way of putting the sustainability goals, because they're all there, and I think it's important for us as a bank to think, because the economic ones are at the top and the social ones are in the middle. And I know that you're going to discuss this later this week, the donut economics. So I just wanted to mention that's an extremely interesting, but we do discussion and a debate, which I think is going to get a lot of attention coming forward.
Yeah, and I think it's the Stockholm Resilience Group that made that sort of interpretation where you have 3 levels, and it's basically climate on the bottom, and we'll not have a place to do business if we don't have climate there, right?
Yeah, but at the same time, you need the people, like you were saying,
Exactly.
you need the people to do the change.
Right.
So then you need the middle layer to do the change on the bottom layer. It's not nature's going to do it; it's the humans.
But I would actually go beyond that. I would say you don't want to save the people because you want to do the climate change. If climate change has come to our awareness over the last 5, 10, 20 years as a serious issue, and now we're going to step up and do something, people have been suffering in this world for hundreds of years, and businesses have not stepped up and have not taken responsibility. Some have, and there are businesses in Norway today that I look up to and that I consider to be the pilots of, had more businesses work like this, particularly businesses who do production in Norway. Right? Cornerstone businesses, I often use as examples of the way that they look after, the way the Norwegian labor has built up the rights and so on. That's the model. That's the model that we should use elsewhere as well, and go beyond this thinking of that we can employ our resources and extract cheap labor elsewhere. Because obviously there's a reason. If you can go to a store and buy a T-shirt for 15 kroner, we need to go beyond that. We need to think there must be a reason for that, right?
Yeah, just to challenge you a little bit on that. I lived in Asia for 8 years, and I think when it comes to sustainability, it's extremely important to have some kind of respect that different cultures are on different, stages in the development. And when I was living in China and we put sustainability at that time in DNV into our vision, the Chinese said, "What is sustainability?" That is an American word. And we kind of had a naming, context among all employees to find the right expression for sustainability in Chinese. We got 30 different expressions. And we ended up then take it to Chinese and back to English, it become an harmonious society, which they could relate to. My point is only because you said take the Norwegian model and spread it out. I fully understand what you mean, but it's also a lot Norwegians can learn about how you do sustainable business in other countries, and I think sustainability is really an issue where you should all respect each other, and with the 17 goals as at the goals, you should respect that different cultures, have different ways of doing that within that framework.
Absolutely. I'm not saying that at all that we should impose the Norwegian welfare state model in any. Well, the ideas behind it, I think, are good and are universally true. We should not necessarily do a blue carbon copy of them and impose them elsewhere. But if you do ask, maybe the sustainability development goals may not be, as a concept, may not be well known everywhere. But if you ask a person if being fed is important, having a job and an income is important, having safety is important, having clean water to drink is important, and that's the great thing about the SDGs, that when translated into local language, they make a lot of sense to people. That was partly the mistake with the previous goals, the 8 goals. They were hard to translate into a local language. With the SDGs, they're well understood locally, but of course in the local context. When we approach our work, we say that what people desperately need are jobs, is security and safety, education for the children. That's not something that we impose from the outside. That's what they're desperate for, but there's not a system that provides it. There's not a state that provides it. What I encourage other business leaders in Asia to do is to pay taxes. But they say, well, why should we pay taxes? The state doesn't work. So obviously there's a need for governance structures in place and all that as well. But there's something basic about people's needs, and if you want to go back to the Maslow's pyramid and so on, but there's something basic about people's safety and needs and being fed, and that does not need translation. That is there. And when we're anyway doing business, my approach is that, well, let's make sure that we do business in the most, and I call it sustainable, in the most sustainable way, in the most accountable way, and an honest way, that I can look into the eyes of my staff and say that, you know what, we're in this together. It's not just that I employ you just now because I need your labor. I work day and night in order to make sure that we have enough orders and products to sell so that they get a job. They are my incentive. My incentive is not selling products.
What comforts, sorry, I just want to say one thing. What comforts me in this debate is always to think about the ILO conventions, which are agreed upon by all countries, by workers, and by workers' organizations, business organizations across the globe in Geneva. And the core conventions are applicable to all countries that are members of UN, whether it be China, Indonesia, Brazil, or Norway. And that's, for me, that's sort of a comfort when discussing these things, because when you start discussing culture, it's difficult. You know, what is in what is in different cultures. But this is something that we've agreed upon. 91 conventions and ILO about how to regulate work, applying all over the world, should be applied all over the world. Core conventions for all UN members. It's as easy as that. Everyone should have it.
But the hard part is, of course, the implementation of it. The hard part is doing it in real life. And we can all sit here in comfortable Oslo and agree that, yes, these are aspirational goals that we should meet, and we have, how many years is left now? Not many years left till we're supposed to meet all these goals. It's going to be hard, not because the goals aren't noble enough, but the implementation of it is going to be hard. And yes, we need governments, we need businesses, we need civil society, we need people, consumers out there, everyone to change the modus operandi today and to speed up. I fully agree that we're not moving fast enough.
And I wanted to pick up on what Björn was saying earlier. We're not moving fast enough, and I think a big group that's probably going to experience a lot of the challenges that we're all experiencing today, the furthest is a lot of young people. So to transition the conversation a bit over there, we see a lot of countries where the population is 50-40% youth below the age of 30. And when you look into the decision making and who has the power in society today, that's the more established. And so youth is not involved really in the decisions that are going to affect the society we all live in today, but especially the side that we're going to be left with the years to come. And so I just wanted to talk about sort of how do you, and if so, how do you work with youth today in your respective works? And this maybe goes out to the three of you first. You want to start?
We work with DGF.
Yeah.
So, and we have the innovation camps with them, where we gather a lot of extremely talented young people, giving us advice about what is the next product, what do people want, what is the best solution, the best product to solve these problems, which direction should we go. We're working now on our strategy, and we've been asking for help because we need their voices in our, and we also have, of course, young people employed in our company, but we need young voices from outside challenging us. One solution.
Yeah. Björn, how do you work with?
Yeah, so of course in Shift we have now more than 40 companies, and we work with those companies in projects. So in Shift we do projects because we really think it's enough talk and we need to do. And of course in these projects we involve people from the companies, and a lot of young people are those who are eager to join the projects. So that is kind of one avenue we work with young people. We have also connected to Shift the big universities in Norway. And we do that in order also to bridge the business sector towards the youth and towards education. So there we have different programs going on, bringing early, fresh ideas, bringing student cases closer to the business sector. So that is very encouraging and very much interest in the business sector to come closer to the university and come closer to the young people at the universities. So at least that is two examples on how we work. On a personal note, I also engage myself a lot working with youth organizations. And I do that because I learn a lot. So maybe I'm selfish, but with working with young people, you know, I get new perspectives, new ideas, and that's why I really put a lot of my time into that work.
And I just want to, before giving it the next to you, very often we talk about the importance, as we're all agreeing here, on youth involvement, but when you look into who and how much it's actually being done in the core processes that actually means something, because very often, yes, young people are may included sort of, I often ask what's the proportion of young people in all your levels of the business, right? Most of them are probably just at the entry level where they're working on projects that's already been decided on, and they say, you know, we want young people with new minds, new perspectives, and you work and you come to things that are, it's been decided 10 years before you came in, and you're just there to deliver and not apply really what you can actually bring in. And so I'm wondering, what are your thoughts on what can be done actually to include young people? My assumption, and you may challenge me on that, is that youth is not involved in the core decision-making processes at the table as an important stakeholder, the same as any other that's been there for much longer. And so do you think that young people are involved in those sort of important, where it's almost like often that you thank you for this good meeting, and we'll go into the next meeting, that's where the real talk is being done, right? But how do we sort of bridge those two rooms and those two conversations to be at the same table? Do you guys think it's being done, or yes or no? And if no, sort of what can be done to bridge that extreme gap? And Valentin, you can also jump in here if you have any thoughts.
I will.
Yeah.
I think you're absolutely right, and I think the answer is a definite no. It's not being done enough. Maybe done to a certain degree some places. We aren't doing enough, absolutely not. And it's hard, and that's probably where I would agree that yes, there's a cultural element there as well in terms of respect for experience and so on. Now we work in Pakistan with experience comes seniority, comes respect, and so on. And if a younger person is to challenge an older person, that would not look good, and so on. Our approach to that is, however, and we go back to the basics. 10, 15 years ago, most of our staff could not read and write. So most of the parents of the children at our school can't read and write. Many of the girls who study at our school are the first girls in their families to be able to read and write. Now, it's not the reading and writing by itself only, which is important, but everything that comes with it, the confidence that comes with it. If you ask them today, what will you become? What do you want to become? And they will tell you that they want to become doctors, prime ministers, military officers, policemen, whatever they want to become. They all of a sudden see that there's an opportunity for me. Alumni from our school, the school has been running for 25 years now, so alumni from the school are now sitting in banks, working in banks. Some have traveled abroad. So people have become something. They've broken the chain of poverty in that local community. That's one way of giving young people opportunities. What we're also trying to do, not as successful as I would like to thus far, but we're still trying to do it, is to find good management positions in our own company to offer graduates from our school, so that they can remain in the local community, can take managerial jobs there, come straight out of school, out of college, and then go into and have important decision-making jobs. And we're getting there. We're training designers today, photographs and designers to work with us. Jobs that previously were only left for people from the cities or well-off children who could afford to go to expensive schools. so that's one way that we are approaching, giving young people an opportunity. It's quite basic though in our case, because we have to make sure that we give them the opportunity to go to school first and foremost.
Yeah, and I'll pass it on to Valentin, because I think you mentioned making decisions, and being a younger person myself, I think it's not always about you have a lot of respect for the experience that others have, right? Because we've tried this, it doesn't work, while I come with the sort of naivety and the thinking, let's do this, right? But you need that cross-generational collaboration. It might be that I don't want to be left with decision making by myself coming in, but I would certainly want to be part of that discussion where that is taken, right? Being at that table. And so you're a younger fellow as well. What are your thoughts on the topic?
Yeah. So my thoughts are that the younger generation, we have still this kind of creativity, this way of challenging things, the willingness and the motivation to change, make the things change as well, and challenge a bit the status quo. So we have that now, and it's not going to be later when we'll have a job or when we'll be 40 and so on, we'll have a family and so on, that will be motivated to actually change the system and things like that. So what I really want from the companies now or leaders is really to kind of take this kind of motivation and try to give the young people the support and the platform for the young people to actually question ideas, try to implement new things, try to think differently as well, and really taking manager position, for example, could be really interesting, and we need to have this kind of knowledge transfer between the generations where you have maybe more experience that you could give to young people, and I think like that.
And I'm going to give the word to Carolina. And I think it's often when you come to these positions, it's a discussion of, do we want to go for the potential, or do we want to stay with what's more comfortable and what's known? And it's very often comes down to that. And so it's about daring, I think, to sort of go beyond what's better long term than what's going to fit us now. And I'll give the word to you, but Carolina asked first, so then Björn after.
I just want to say to all young people that are engage and put their voices forward, that you are heard, and that a company may seem closed from outside, but when you're inside a company, it's the windows and the doors are quite open to the world. And because I was interviewed for them by Save the Children for the school strikes, did it mean something? Did you listen? You as adults, companies, business, did you hear us? And I had to go around and ask in the bank, did this affect you? Does it affect your decision making? Now, as I said, we're going to make a new strategy. Does it affect you in that way? And they all said yes. And I think as a school striker, you feel that you were screaming and screaming and no one heard you. But we did hear. But maybe we're not good enough to at telling that we heard you. We really hear the voices, and that's what I'm using every day in my work to change the path to a more sustainable path every day. That's all these voices that we have around us. So it means something, even though no one is picking up the phone and said, I heard you, I saw you on that video, or I heard you in front of the parliament. So I just want to say to everyone that it means something. It really does.
Yeah, I fully agree to what you said. That that in the business sector we can certainly be much better to create platforms to enable more interaction. I think that go for most of the companies. But saying that being young is not, a qualification in itself. So it's not just being young and then you are very valuable into all kind of processes. It must be something more into it. So I would like to challenge back in the ways. So I meet a lot of young people which are old, very traditional. So it's not that every young people. And I meet a lot of old people which are very young. So it's not that all old people are very, traditional. I meet a lot of them which have ideas, which, are moving and changing. So So my point is just going back to young people that, it must be something more into those young people who would like. So you need to express a passion. You need to have some kind of fire burning into yourself. And if you have a fire burning into yourself, I think in most companies today, you are most welcome to express your voice, your ideas, and be listening to.
Yeah.
But we are looking for that fire.
Yeah.
So what is your fire?
Yeah, our common future, you know. I think that's why people are going out to the streets and knocking and saying, you know, it shouldn't be necessary that we take school off, work off to say, you know, hey guys, care for our future that we are going to continue to live in if we have to take responsibility for that. And I think, of course, it's a given that, you know, young is not a credibility to get into the fore. But the fact is that if you look at a lot of the companies that are run today, this is very disproportionate when you look at, you know, the demographics inside of the company. You see an overload of plus 40 in a lot of important companies. If you go into the rooms that matter, if you look into the boardrooms, there were an article just the other day that there were more people above the age of 80 than there were below the 30, which says something about how they're going to, you know, our wealth is carried on those kind of companies. How are they going to continue if they don't have a representative demographic inside of their company? So, but it's still, when that's a fact, you often tend as a person to go to what's familiar. Oh, this person has, you know, a lot of experience is good, but it also damages you a bit because you're very more prone to say, oh no, you're less prone to say yes to maybe something that's unfamiliar because you have so much experience. That sort of prohibits you in a way. Might be so, but there's a balance, and it's not saying often that, you know, let's get young people out and the elders out, right? But it's a balance of having, you know, both there, because we also need you and you also need us. But currently it's very much this than, you know, closer to here, and that's what I'm trying to challenge, Ahmad.
I think the key here is diversity, and it comes to diversity in all ways, in terms of gender, in terms of ethnicity, in terms of age, in terms of cultural backgrounds, in terms of so many different areas. Now, the way you say 40 plus, it sounds like 40 plus is an ancient thing. Now, as a 40 plus person with bright young ideas, I do consider myself still to be, you know, fresh out there. But I fully agree. I think there's a role for younger people. There are people younger than me even to play a role. But my encouragement would be to be creative. The real power, yes, there's a power in speaking up, but the real power is in asking questions. And in choosing, be conscious about the choices that you make. Now, both when you buy something, but when you let someone use your time or your money, ask questions about it. Where does this thing come from? Who has made it? Now, if I place my money in your bank, or if I buy this product, who has made it? Where will my money go? Where will you invest it? Now, banks and companies that produce things or services will respond to their consumers' demands. That's the basic of trade. So there's a supply and a demand. If the demand is asking questions, and if the demand increasingly wants more sustainable products or services, I can assure you that the supply side, businesses will also provide that. But so there's a huge power that lies there in consumerism. We are a society today that does consume a lot of products. If you shift a percentage of that consumption into more sustainable, not fully sustainable like I mentioned earlier, but into a more sustainable direction, that itself will be a very important change. Yeah. And that power is available to everyone right now. You can go out there, when you go to do your grocery shopping, your clothes shopping, which T-shirt should you buy today? In most stores, there are options.
Yeah.
Now, choose the one that is more sustainable, even if that costs you a couple of kroner extra.
Yeah, and I think that's also what you're seeing with young people being more asking more if we're starting new jobs, right? It's not very often traditionally the interview goes one way, right? Why should I be? And now you guys are asking me questions, but I think what we're seeing now is certainly it goes also the other way. Why should I work for you? What are you guys doing? Younger people want to be part of working in a meaningful place. You see that also a lot on the statistics. People are leaving because I can't work here if I can't stand for what's being done, and that's regardless of age, if it's young or elder. People are changing different businesses based on the level of action. People are leaving because the company is not really, it's inaction. So it's a very, very interesting discussion to have in terms of how we can increase it. But I'm going to try to round it up and go a bit back to you guys. And I want to ask, what keeps you guys awake at night, if you're awake at night? Björn?
Well, not very much. In sense, I am very optimistic. As I have said before, I really think change are going too slow and all of that. But still, I am optimistic, and that is mainly driven by what I see in younger generations, because I see that many of them have the fire inside. They ask the questions. They really would like to engage themselves in the better world. And I think that is how change happened. It is, it takes a generation or two. But I think young people now, as we saw with all the strikes, I think it is an engagement there. I see politicians being more brave, and I see the business sector understanding that this is a big opportunity. So in general, I'm very happy now.
Yeah.
And this week we also had a big climate meeting in the US. Still a lot of promises, a lot of talk, but still words matter. And I think with the way we see the US, the EU, China now, really pledging their goals, that will enable a big change. So I'm basically sleeping well, and I'm encouraged by the power in the younger generation.
Nice. Are you as optimistic as Björn and not awake, or what keeps you awake?
For 25 years. I in the 80s we were boycotting the Godmorgen yogurt because there was too much plastic, and I waited for the change to happen, and it didn't happen. So I've been so pessimistic for a lot of years, but I'm starting to become much more optimistic. And I think a reason is because I'm working in finance. I see money is transferring. I see what the EU is doing with the Green Deal, with Joe Biden. Things are happening. So I'm starting to feel that it's finally happening now. And we do not have a lot of years left. We have 9 years until 2030. So it must happen now.
So that keeps you awake at night?
Yes, it still does.
Yeah.
And it makes my son afraid. But I'm ending on a positive note as well. I think change is happening now, and I hope we're gonna speed up so we will reach it. I really hope so.
And I think that's just a very important thing that, of course, young people often, if we're invited to talk about young people, it's like, what do young people think about this? Well, there's 1.8 billion young people around the world, so it's not a homogeneous group. So there's, of course, as you said, a lot of young people that doesn't care, doesn't acknowledge that we have any problems. But there's also a lot of young people that are really scared about their future on a serious note, that are really has anxiety for what's going to come. So I think that also is something that keeps a lot of people awake. What keeps you awake at night?
Well, apart from the obvious thing of, like I mentioned earlier, ensuring that the staff that work with us, the 400 staff, have a job to go to every day, which is an immediate responsibility that hangs on my shoulders. And I know that if I were to take a month's break, that would not generate any work. Which would give me a headache. So that part obviously is there. But what the real incentive, the real drive, and what keeps me awake is to see that real change can actually happen. when I look into the eyes of some of these girls who study at our school and realize that they go to school only because this ecosystem that we have built functions. And it's an ecosystem consisting of a business, but it's a responsible business, right? That takes responsibility for its local community. The consumers sitting here in Norway and Sweden, and the local community where these children are. Because of that ecosystem, because that works, because I make sure, my job is to make sure that it is being fed and it works, it functions, then we can generate something positive out of it. And that optimism, which is based on a realistic approach to it, a very pragmatic approach to it. I don't go out there and think that everything's going to be perfect by just sitting back and doing nothing, but it requires extremely hard work and extremely bold decisions and tough decisions, and being able to be willing to sometimes do something differently. What I sometimes miss from business leaders out there, having made the shift from the development sector into now the business sector, what I miss sometimes is the boldness, the lack of boldness. The missing the opportunity to use one's resources that are available to one today to make bold decisions that will change tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And that, I think, lies within most businesses. You don't have to be a multi-billion-dollar business to make those changes. You can be tiny. When we started, we were tiny. We have built ourselves up by making decisions, right decisions. Just 2 days ago, on Earth Day, we decided that we are going to go renewable. We will install solar panels at our factory and at our school, and all the energy that we consume will be generated from those solar panels. It was a decision. Is it going to cost us? Of course it will cost us. What keeps me awake? What keeps me awake is to make sure that we can raise the resources to make that happen. But we made that decision, right? It's like the SDGs, 2030. We've said publicly before, I think 1 year ago, that we will do what we can in our little business to make sure that village, Sultan Town it's called, with 9,000 inhabitants, will be the first village in Pakistan that will achieve not necessarily all the SDGs, but as many as applicable for that village. We'll do everything we can to make as many of the 17 goals achieved as possible. Here we go, an unachievable goal, maybe, but at least we have a goal that we're going to work towards, and I want to be held accountable to that. I want our customers and our partners to be asking me again and again, so how's that going? How's that pledge of yours going?
Perfect. I'll call you in a year.
Do, absolutely. And if we don't make that, have we failed? Well, hopefully not. Hopefully we are moving in that direction. Yeah. And so we're doing that at a micro scale. Bigger businesses, politicians and so on, should be doing that at a much larger scale.
Thank you. Valentin?
Well, first I would like to reply a bit to Amar and Björn, because being young, I think I'm still optimistic, but also very frustrated in a way. When it's about, for example, I agree that youngs are not all the same. Maybe some are a bit less motivated than others, but I think for me the fire is now, the fire with the strikes, with Fridays for Future, with all the movement we have now. The fire is here, the motivation is here from the young generation, and what you're asking, the spark that young people need to have as well, this spark requires experience as well. In order to ask the right question, you need to have the right understanding of the world, and that you will only have it with years, all right? So, yes, you're asking for the sparks in the young generation, but that's as if, for example, employers asking for young people, but with 10 years of experience or more, or something like that. And we cannot have both in a way. So I think what the young people want is really that the leaders could really lead them as well in the right way. The young people feel the urge now. I think that's really what we feel. We feel the urge to do something. That's what we are asking the leaders to do. So our sparks is this motivation to go in the street, to ask for things now. And now I think the job is not to ask us to have the spark or to ask the right question, but maybe to orient us to, and maybe teach us how to ask the right questions after. So
that's a very good point.
Yeah.
Very often it's almost like if the experience that is required to even get into maybe the right positions, it's simple, we haven't lived long enough.
Yeah.
So the playing field is not even evil or even to get into better. But yeah, that's a good point.
And something that Amar said as well, that now we are really waiting for some bold decisions, and that's what we are really waiting for, I would say. This transition between like this, I would say, weak sustainability, where sustainability is about communication or trust in technologies and things like that, but just with technologies and communication, we're not gonna go really far in a way. We need more, we need systemic change, we need changes in the society, we need proper commitment, we need also commitment that makes sense. When we say, for example, we'll be zero waste or emission-free in 2040, is that really gonna happen? Is that, how easy is it to set this goal in a way? So, yeah, I would say I'm very optimistic in a way, but also frustrated because there is still a lot to be done. And I would say that what keeps me awake in the night is ideas. I think it is the dream of an ideal in a way. Because, yeah, when you get asleep, I think this state of boredom, maybe when you start thinking about things, that's where you get ideas and where you start dreaming in a way. And that's what is keeping me awake, but in a really good way. And that's what is giving me ideas as well.
Thank you. And we need the words and commitments to be followed by proper action as well, and for the actions, for it to match really. One thing is saying that we'll commit or we're going to do this, and then having actions that really gives the opposite signals the other way. Yeah. And really need to close it up. But last
really short thing. I think if there's something that young people often hear, it's that's a great idea, but I don't think that's possible. Or it's a great idea, but why don't we get back to that later? Because it's you know, the approach is that, well, that's a bit far-fetched, or that's too great, or you know, we can't really do that. Change is always difficult, right? So I think any major change has come from an idea. Someone's idea has been communicated, has been you get more followers and so on. So I would very much encourage people to think bold ideas, convey them to others, get others to be convinced about those ideas as well, and don't give up. Even though if someone tells you no, you can't do that, I would still keep on working on it. Some of my boldest ideas have come late at night, and the next morning, after having of course sent some emails in the middle of the night, and someone writes back to me and says, well, you know, that's really not feasible. That's people have tried that before. Some of those ideas that I've not put aside but stuck with, we are now about to implement. We're one of the first companies in the world that will deliver 100% recycled cotton. No polyester mixed whatsoever in it. That's because I, for the last 3-4 years, have I've kept on asking for it. Everyone tells me, no, sir, I'm sorry, that's not possible. That's not available in the local market. We don't make that. You need to have polyester in it. Well, you keep on asking for it, and one day someone will make it because they realize there is a demand for it. And
that's the mindset.
And now we're actually doing it.
Yeah.
We don't need why it doesn't work. We'll understand, oh, okay, this is a challenge, but well, let's try to figure it out. And with that, I want to say thank you for this conversation, and thank you to everyone that's been following us.
Welcome.
I hope that the keynote and roundtable was exciting, that it gave you insight, perspective, and perhaps triggered some new thoughts. Thank you for allowing me to take you through this session.